from the legislative councils of British West African colonies make a colourful scene as they assemble at Lancaster House, London, for the first African conference. Among the delegates are representatives from Nigeria, Gold Coast, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Kenya, Uganda, Tanganyika, Zanzibar, Northern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland. Also represented are the Union of South Africa, Southern Rhodesia, Bechuanaland, Lesotholand, Swaziland, and Sudan. The delegates have come to London to discuss a great number of questions that affect their own countries. The chief among these questions are economic development, education, agriculture, local government, medical services, and public relations. The delegates have come not only to discuss these important matters, but to get into touch with each other, to know something of each other's problems, and, if possible, find a way to more active cooperation. In spite of air transport, there is little real contact between the various African territories. It is hoped that the conference will help to bring those territories much closer together. Besides meeting each other, the delegates meet members of the British government, with whom they can exchange views. During the course of the conference, several prominent speakers are to address the Assembly. Among them will be Field Marshal Lord Montgomery, who is to speak on Africa's place in defence, and Lord Trefgarne, Chairman of the Colonial Development Corporation, who will explain the financial side of economic development. The general purpose of the conference is to promote a true spirit of cooperation between the African territories and councils, the kind of spirit that will mean greater prosperity for the whole country. Mr. Herbert Morrison, Lord President of the Council, opens the conference. With Mr. Creech Jones, the Colonial Secretary, on his left, and Mr. Rhys Williams, Parliamentary Under Secretary, on his right, Mr. Morrison says that Great Britain seeks to bring about, in partnership with the colonial peoples, an improvement in social and educational standards, as well as the economic development of African territories. The Colonial Development and Welfare Programme is to cost Britain £120 million. In addition, there is the Colonial Development Corporation with a capital of £100 million, which has been launched to encourage public and private enterprise in Africa. Britain had much to offer and gave it gladly, said Mr. Morrison. He hoped that the conference would show the best ways in which help could be given to the advantage of them all. Mr. Creech Jones, Secretary of State for the Colonies, welcomes the delegates and reads a message of greeting from the Prime Minister, Mr. Attlee, whose state of health prevents him from being present. The Prime Minister's message, says Mr. Creech Jones, expresses his confidence that with sustained effort and cooperation, they will accomplish the difficult tasks that lie ahead. The delegates visit some farms in Hertfordshire, a county near London. Farming is a big subject for discussion at the conference, and the visitors are anxious to see some of the methods used by British farmers. At a farm owned by the County Agricultural Committee, they see a demonstration of 3-furrow ploughing in preparation for the sowing of winter wheat. The soil is turned quickly and neatly, and a large area can be ploughed with very little labor. Next comes a machine that combines the operations of drilling or sowing and fertilizing. The delegates watch with great interest as the machine does its work. One of their greatest needs at home is for improved agricultural methods. Better tools mean a bigger and better output, and on improved farming practices depends to a great extent the prosperity of the whole country. The visitors talk to the farm workers and learn at first hand the conditions under which they work. To the farmers among the visitors, irrigation and drainage are two very vital subjects. So it is with particular attention that they watch a demonstration of trench cutting, land drainage, and harrowing. The problem in Africa has always been how to retain the moisture. And here is one method that has been proved very successful. The machine cuts a perfectly straight trench as it advances, thus saving a great deal of time and labor. It was one of the modern methods for the better use of existing land, one answer to the problem of soil fertility. Now comes a demonstration of potato harvesting, with land girls driving the machines. The potatoes are harvested by means of a spinner, which scoops up the crop and leaves it ready for gathering. The visitors want to know more of woman's part in agriculture. They learn that in this country there is an organization called the Women's Land Army, which is doing a lot of very useful work on the farms. On a moving platform or conveyor, the potatoes are graded or sorted into sizes and qualities. This is a job that is particularly suited to women. In a revolving cage or screen, the smaller potatoes are discarded for cattle feed. The potatoes are finally put into sacks for transport to market. The visitors are introduced to a young pedigree bull. Livestock breeding is something that interests them a great deal, and they're anxious to know in what ways they can improve the stocks in their own country. An interesting morning is spent at the works of a large motor car company at Coventry. This is one of the largest factories in the country, with a tremendous annual output of cars and commercial vehicles. With machines playing such a large part in the progress of any country, the visitors from Africa are eager to learn how they are produced. Inside the factory, they see many half-finished cars on the assembly line. As the line moves on, something else is added until the cars are finished. Work goes on all the time. Women operate some of the lighter machines. They're good workers with nimble fingers that do these jobs quickly and well. A works official shows the engine and one of the finished cars. Some of the delegates are engineers themselves, and to them, this is of particular interest. But of even greater interest to all farming communities, and to the delegates who represent those communities, are the tractors. These machines are also mass-produced at the works. They roll off the assembly line in their hundreds. These large, fast tractors can do many jobs on the farm. Coupled up to a plough, for instance, much more work is done in much less time. It's the modern way to progress. So, another interesting visit comes to an end. The delegates have been well entertained, and they've learned a great deal. Workers wave the visitors goodbye as the cars and the coaches leave the motorworks for the next part of their tour. Of very special interest for the delegates from West Africa is a visit to a famous factory near Birmingham, where cocoa and chocolate are made. There they see the ingenious machines that transform the raw material into the finished article. Every process is done mechanically until the wrapped bars of chocolate reach the conveyor belt for packing. This sort of work is very suitable for women. So the delegates see how the commodity they grow in Africa is processed in England. They see the other end, so to speak, of a long journey. Large cartons of cocoa are stacked ready for shipment. good African cocoa that will be exported to many parts of the world. One of the delegates gives a hand with the loading. There's nothing like seeing the job through from beginning to end. Cocoa is one of the world's most valuable products, and Africa's output can still be improved. The delegates visit Stratford-on-Avon, the ancient town in Warwickshire, which is famous as the birthplace of William Shakespeare, the great dramatist who lived in the reign of England's Queen Elizabeth. The party are received by the director of the Shakespeare Birthday Trust, Mr. Levi Fox. The site of Shakespeare's house is surrounded by gardens. As the visitors walk through, the director tells them something of the great genius to whom the whole town is practically dedicated. The poet and playwright who lived there 3.5 centuries ago. Here, in this pretty little thatched cottage, was born Anne Hathaway, who in the year 1582 became Shakespeare's wife. The cottage is said to be the finest example of a period farmhouse in the country, and people visit it from all over the world. From Stratford-on-Avon, motor coaches take the delegates to Oxford, one of the greatest seats of learning in the world. There are many colleges in Oxford, the largest being Christ Church. It is over 400 years old. With education so prominent in the discussions at the conference, this visit to Christ Church is of very special interest. Over the main gateway of Christ Church is a tower containing a large bell known as Tom. A clock strikes the hours on it, and at 9:05 in the evening, it is rung 101 times by hand to indicate that the gates are to be closed. Originally, there were 101 students. On the last day of the conference, the African delegates go to Buckingham Palace. A procession of cars carrying the colonial representatives comes through St. James's Park on the way to the London home of the King. Outside the gates, a sentry of the King's Guards presents arms in salute. The delegates drive into the palace courtyard, there to be photographed again before the arrival of the King. His Majesty King George has travelled from his Scottish home at Balmoral, especially to receive his distinguished visitors. It is an historic meeting. The King is keenly interested in all colonial questions, and he asks for information on some of them. He and the delegates make a happy picture as they stand on the palace steps. The first African conference to be held in this country comes to a close, but only for the moment. Much useful work has been done. Many useful contacts have been made, and a closer understanding has been reached. There will be other conferences. The good work must go on.